Hello, students. Welcome back to Miss Bell's classroom. Please remember to enroll in my class by clicking the subscribe button. Today we will be continuing our space series and we'll be talking about another planet. And we will have a quiz at the end, so please remember to take notes and ask any questions that you have throughout the lesson. So if we take a look here, this is a planet. Does anyone know what planet this is? It's not Saturn. It's not Neptune. You're very close. Yes, it is Jupiter. Can anyone guess when Jupiter was first discovered? Not 1,000 years ago. The first recorded sighting of Jupiter were by the ancient Babylonians in around 700 to 800 BC. And Jupiter, it's named this because it's named after the king of the Roman gods and god of the sky. And the Greek equivalent is Zeus, god of thunder. Germanic tribes know this planet as Thor. It is the 5th planet from our star, the sun. So, can anyone guess how many Earth years is 1 year on Jupiter? It's not 2. It's not 3. It's more than that. It's not 10, but you're getting very close. It is 12. Jupiter takes about 12 Earth years to complete one orbit of the sun. And a Jupiter year is called a Jovian year. Any questions so far? Okay, good. Remember to take good notes. So Jupiter is the largest and most massive planet in the solar system. It would take 11 Earths lined up next to each other to stretch from one side of Jupiter to the other. So if we lined up Earths from starting here to here, it would take 11 Earths across. And it would take 317 Earths to equal the mass of Jupiter. So if we look here, I'm going to show you a picture of Earth compared to Jupiter in size. So here is Earth, and this is how much bigger Jupiter is than Earth. So if we think about it in comparison to real life items, we could think of Earth is like a grape and Jupiter is like a basketball. So it's much, much bigger than Earth is. So raise your hand if you think Jupiter has a moon or maybe more than one moon, or it doesn't have moons. So most of us think that Jupiter has a moon. Okay. How many moons do you think Jupiter has? 50? Wow, it's a big guess. It's more than that. Any other guesses? 60? It's more than 60. It's not 65. Jupiter has 67 confirmed moons orbiting the planet. And these moons are separated into 3 groups. So the first group is called the inner moons. And these are the moons that orbit closest to Jupiter. So they would be closer to the planet. And those are called the inner moons. And the names of the inner moons of Jupiter are and I apologize if I pronounce these incorrectly. Metis, Adrastea, Amalthea, and Thebe. And then, so after the inner moons, it would be the Galilean moons. And these are actually the largest of Jupiter moons. And they were discovered by Galileo in the 1610. When Galileo discovered Jupiter's moons, this was the first proof of other moons in our solar system. And the moons in this section are Io, Europa, Ganymede, and Callisto. And I apologize if I say those incorrectly. So after that layer of moons, we have the outer moons. And the outer moons are much smaller and further away from Jupiter. And another thing about them is they also have irregular orbit paths, and many are actually captured asteroids. Okay, any questions about the moons? Who can tell me how many sections of moons are there? 3. Very good. Okay, so now we're going to talk about the days on Jupiter. So Jupiter has the shortest day of the 8 planets. Can anyone guess how long a day on Jupiter is? It's not 24 hours. That's how long a day on Earth is. 15 hours. You're getting closer. It's less than that. It is actually 10 hours. So a day on Jupiter is 10 hours, and that is the shortest day of any planet in our solar system. So the planet rotates very quickly, turning on its axis once every 9 hours and 55 minutes. This rapid rotation is also what causes the flattening effect of the planet, which is why it has an oblate shape. And so an oblate shape kind of looks like this, where the poles are more smashed together, and then the equator is more out. It's almost like an oval. It's not a perfect sphere. So it's squashed at the poles, and then the equator is kind of stretched out. Okay, any questions so far? Okay, so take a look at Jupiter. Does anyone see a ring around it? Do you see one? No? Well, you're in for a surprise. There actually is a faint ring around Jupiter, although you can't see it in this picture. Its ring is mostly comprised of dust particles from some of Jupiter's moons during impacts from comets and asteroids. And an interesting fact, the largest of Jupiter's moons, Ganymede, is also the largest moon in our solar system. And Ganymede is larger than the planet of Mercury. How big is that? That's crazy. It's huge. Any questions so far? Okay, so this is the moon Ganymede, and if we look here, we can see that there's lots and lots of craters on this moon. And this is the largest moon in the solar system, and it's bigger than Mercury. Any questions so far? Okay, so now we're going to talk about Jupiter's magnetic field. Jupiter has a very strong magnetic field. It's around 14 times stronger than the magnetic field found on Earth, and the strongest of any planet in the solar system. pretty strong. Any questions so far? Okay. So Jupiter is the fourth brightest object in our solar system. Who remembers what other objects are brighter in our sky? The sun. Good. And this is from our sky, the Earth. The moon. There's one more. It's not Mercury. Try again. Yes. It's not Mars. It is Venus. Good. So the sun, moon, and Venus are brighter in our sky, but Jupiter is the fourth brightest object in our solar system. So raise your hand. Do you think you can see the planet Jupiter with just your eye? Raise your hand if you think yes. Okay, raise your hand if you think no. Okay, so Jupiter is one of the 5 planets which can be seen by the naked eye from Earth. Any questions so far? Okay, so now we're going to talk about Jupiter's unique cloud layer. And Jupiter has a very unique cloud layer. The upper atmosphere of the planet is divided into zones in cloud belts, which are made of ammonia crystals, sulfur, and a mixture of these two compounds. So if we look here, we can see the different colors, and those are the different layers of the clouds. So you can see kind of looks like stripes, and then there's within those stripes they have the clouds. Any questions about that? Okay, feel free to take some notes. So 9 spacecrafts have visited Jupiter, and 7 flew by, and 2 have orbited the gas giant. Those are Pioneer 10 and 11, Voyager 1 and 2, Galileo, Cassini, Ulysses, and Horizon's mission, and Juno. Juno, the most recent, arrived at Jupiter in 2016. Any questions about that? Okay. So raise your hand if you think Jupiter might have seasons like Earth has. So Earth has fall, winter, spring, and summer. Do you think Jupiter has seasons? You do? Jupiter does not experience seasons like other planets such as Earth and Mars. This is because the axis is only tilted by 3 degrees, and only planets that tilt on their axis have seasons. If Jupiter had become 80 times more massive, nuclear fusion would have occurred in its core. Had that happened, it would have become a star instead of a planet. Since Jupiter is so massive, and since it has so many moons orbiting it, some people look at it as a mini solar system. And the thickness of Jupiter's atmosphere is more difficult to define than those of the terrestrial planets. So Jupiter goes from a gaseous outer zone into the planet's liquid layer, and those layers of the atmosphere visible to Earth-based telescopes are divided into lighter and darker horizontal bands. So you can see the darker and the lighter bands here. So scientists believe that these bands to be layers of high and low pressure. And as a result, storms often develop in between both bands. Any questions so far? Okay. So the composition of Jupiter's atmosphere is very interesting. at roughly 90% hydrogen and 10% helium. Jupiter's composition is nearly the same as the Sun's. The only difference between the two is that the Sun is much more massive than Jupiter. And this composition supports the theory that Jupiter could have been a star. Any questions? Okay. Let's go ahead and let's take a snack break after processing all of that information. So grab your snacks. If you have any questions right now, you can raise your hand and I can come help you or explain things. So grab your snacks. Alright, please put away your snacks and take out your notebook again because we're going to continue to learn about Jupiter. Give you a few seconds to put those away. Okay, is everyone ready? Okay, so as we know, Jupiter cannot support life, but some of Jupiter's moons have oceans beneath their crust that might support life. The interior of Jupiter is believed to consist of 3 regions. The first is a rocky, solid core composed of various elements. The core is surrounded by the second region, a layer of liquid hydrogen, and the third region consists of ordinary hydrogen with traces of helium. And a fascinating property of Jupiter is that it emits more energy than it receives from the Sun. And that is the opposite of Earth, which takes more energy from the Sun than it gives off. And as a result of such a large mass, Jupiter exerts a strong gravitational force on itself, which results in the compression of the planet as a whole. The planet squeezes in on itself, and the effect of all the squeezing is a large amount of heat, which is radiated into space. Jupiter is a little more than 5 times the distance from the Earth to the Sun. This means that it takes about 43 minutes for sunlight to reach Jupiter. Recently, the Hubble Space Telescope captured an amazing event on the North Pole of Jupiter. So Jupiter, like Earth, has an aurora, otherwise known as the Northern Lights. Raise your hand if you've heard of the Northern Lights. Aren't they beautiful? So the Northern Lights, which instead of a mystical green like on Earth, on Jupiter it appears an electric blue color. So I'm going to show you a picture of it. So we see here, this is Jupiter, and up here we can see that they have an aurora at their northern pole, just like Earth has the Northern Lights. Jupiter's aurora is a stunning electric blue whirl, which is actually ultraviolet light. And since it is ultraviolet light, you would not be able to see it with your own eyes. Any questions so far? Okay, so go ahead and take notes. Raise your hand if you have a question. Okay, so go ahead and wrap up your notes. So now let's focus on one of the most popular features of Jupiter, the Great Red Spot. So if we look here, you can see this giant red spot. So the largest and most powerful hurricane on Earth ever recorded was 1,000 miles across, with winds gusting up to around 200 miles per hour. But even that kind of storm is dwarfed by the Great Red Spot, which is a gigantic storm in Jupiter. And the storm on Jupiter is 3 times as wide as Earth. It's very, very large. In this storm, winds blow at around 400 miles per hour, which is twice as fast as the winds blown on Earth. The Great Red Spot has been swirling wildly over Jupiter's skies for the past 150 years, maybe even much longer than that. In addition to the Great Red Spot, there is another massive storm called Oval BA. So if we look here, you can see this giant red spot, and then this is Oval BA. And the storm reached its current size when 3 smaller spots collided and merged in the year 2000. So the Great Red Spot, which is about twice as wide as Oval BA, may have formed from the same process centuries ago. Right, so take some notes. If you have questions, raise your hand and I can help you with them. No questions? Okay, let's move on. So now we're going to talk about the pearls of Jupiter. Jupiter's string of pearls on Jupiter is a series of massive counterclockwise rotating storms that appear as white ovals in the gas giant's southern hemisphere. Since 1986, these white ovals have varied in number from 6 to 9. Continue to take some notes on that. That's important. And raise your hand if you think that we could launch rockets into the outer solar system and beyond. Okay, so there are no rockets powerful enough to hurl a spacecraft into the outer solar system and beyond. So does anyone have a guess how we send spacecrafts to the outer solar system and beyond, since our rockets are not strong enough? Okay, so I'll let you know, it's in 1962, scientists actually calculated how to use Jupiter's intense gravity to hurl spacecraft into the farthest regions of the solar system. And we've been traveling farther and faster ever since. Okay, so that is all the information I have on Jupiter. Raise your hand if you enjoyed learning about Jupiter today. Okay, that's awesome. So I hope that you are taking notes during the lesson, because it is now time for your quiz. So take out your notebooks, write your name and the numbers 1 through 10, and then we will begin. Okay, so make sure you have 1 through 10. So number 1 is, when was Jupiter first discovered? You can use your notes for this as well, in case you forgot. Number 2, 1 year on Jupiter is equivalent to how many Earth years? Number 3, how many moons does Jupiter have? Number 4, how long is a day on Jupiter? Number 5, what are the other objects in our sky that are brighter than Jupiter? Number 6, does Jupiter have seasons? Number 7, how many minutes does it take sunlight to reach Jupiter? Number 8, what is the giant red spot on Jupiter? Number 9, how strong are the winds blowing in the giant red spot? And number 10, What does the atmosphere of Jupiter mostly consist of? Wait, does anyone need me to repeat any questions? Okay, we're good. Okay, so I'm going to go over the answers, so please check your work. So number 1, when was Jupiter first discovered? And you should have said around 700 to 800 BC. Number 2, 1 year on Jupiter is equivalent to how many Earth years? So 12 Earth years is 1 Jupiter year. Number 3, how many moons does Jupiter have? It has 67 confirmed moons. Number 4, how long is a day on Jupiter? It is 9 hours and 55 minutes. Number 5, what are the other objects in Earth's sky that are brighter than Jupiter? The Sun, Moon, and Venus. Number 6, does Jupiter have seasons? No. Number 7, how many minutes does it take sunlight to reach Jupiter? 43 minutes. Number 8, what is the giant red spot on Jupiter? It's a giant storm. Number 9, how strong are the winds blowing in the giant red spot? 400 miles per hour. And number 10, what does the atmosphere of Jupiter mostly consist of? Hydrogen is the answer. So go ahead and grade your quizzes and then turn them in. And thank you for learning or refreshing your memory about Jupiter today. I hope you have a relaxing and restful sleep. Good night.